Hello, and welcome back to Sharks Happen. My name is Hal. I'm your host, going over shark attacks from the 1900s till present, mostly large sharks. And we'll get started right away. We're going to head back to Port St. John, Second Beach, South Africa. The date is March 21st, 2009. Loyolo Mangele, he was 16 years old, and he was with 3 other surfers. They were all from a surf club there, and he's out surfing with them. Manager at the beach says he heard a scream. They look over, they look at his board, and it's just surrounded by a pool of blood. He was able to get himself back on his board, Loyolo was, and paddle his way back to shore. They made their way to him and put a tourniquet on him. He was bitten in the thigh and in the buttocks. They tried putting on a tourniquet, but he went into shock, and 30 minutes later he had passed away. They believe it was a bull shark. No mention on size. It happened at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. No mention on size of the shark. No definite identification. But I'm going to put this down as an attempt to predate by a bull shark. Okay, now we head over back into the Adriatic Sea off of Croatia, of Novigrad. Mr. Jurincic is his name. This is 1970. There's no real details at all that I can find on this attack, other than he was out spearfishing and he was attacked by a great white. Usually those great whites finish the job, but with no details, we're just going to put this down as an attack. Just an attack by a great white. That's our story of Mr. Jurincic. Okay, now we're going to head over off the coast of South Africa to Paradise Reef. The date, March 19th, 1967. Len Jones, 32 years old. He is out doing some spearfishing with some friends. They're about 300 yards from shore. 300 meters from shore. He's in 7 meters deep water, 23-foot deep water, somewhere around there. It's almost 5 o'clock in the afternoon. Len has 2 large fish that he's already speared, and he now speared a third and went to the surface. Directly below him, it sounds like down near the bottom, is his buddy Roland Drake. Roland says that he had seen a shark fin come over his head and stop directly below his buddy, and he says he knew it was attacking his buddy because the shark was straight and then its head was arched up, so it bent its body up to bite him. It didn't swim up to bite him. The reason I get into that is the Global Shark Attack file claims that Drake said that the shark went right below him and then shot straight up to the surface to get him. Well, that's not true. There isn't enough room in the water for it to get in between a friend that's down near the bottom, you up at the top in 20 foot of water, and get a 12-foot great white shark in between you, rushing you from the bottom. I'll go with the shark attack file, the Navy shark attack file. This is a 1967 attack. 1968, the Navy shark attack file went dormant until 88 when the U of Florida grabbed it and ruined it. So he's up at the top. Shark bends its way up. The other thing that they said was interesting, the shark attack file, was that there was porpoise spotted in the area. And at that time in 1967, they didn't think that porpoises in the area would mean that a shark would be there. Like, you know, that myth that sharks are afraid of things. They're not. You know, orcas. Great whites are afraid of orcas. That's about it. So I don't believe in any of that, but the two differences from shooting straight up or just bending the body, because that was the thing, is you know, the Navy shark attack file, they did this investigation to try to save, you know, their Navy men and their seamen, and who knows why the University of Florida took over, because what are they doing with the information? They're just running to localities and to the, you know, to the governments at these places. They aren't telling the public what's going on. So, you know, what are you doing? Useless shark attack file. You should just give that back up. So that's our story of Len Jones. He ended up with an attack. Now, I am going to put this down as an attempt to predate. When he was first bit, he said that it had his hip in his mouth. His bag was in the shark's mouth. His belt. So his dive belt was in the shark's mouth, and the fish was in the shark's mouth too, and he lost the fish. So it wasn't coming back at him for the fish, because shark let him go. He's at the top. Drake follows him to the top. Now Drake's with him, and he's asking Drake to take a look at his wound because there's so much blood and tissue in the water. It could have been flesh from the fish, and it sounds like it was flesh from the fish. He, in the meantime, takes his mask and looks down, and he sees the shark coming back at a 30-degree angle at him. So he dives his head down and points his spear gun at it, and the shark veered off and left him alone at that point. But then they swam to shore, and witnesses claim that that shark followed him all the way into shore without attacking him. But that's not what they do. They wait for you to stop moving. So I'm putting this down as an attack and an attempt to predate on Lynn Jones, 32 years old. Okay, now we're going to head over off the coast of South Australia, off Aldinga Beach to Snapper Point. The date, March 8th, 1991. Jonathon Lee is 19 years old, and he is part of about 8 people that are out doing some diving out at the reef. They're about 350 yards, 350 meters from shore in 18 meters deep water, and it's 3 in the afternoon. The group had been in the water about 20 minutes diving. 4 of the boys had already gone back and climbed back onto the boat, and Jonathon Lee and the most senior diver, Dave Roberts, they were swimming their way back to the boat now, finishing off their dive. Dave Roberts has seen a colorful rock down at the bottom, and he went down to check it out. And all of a sudden he had to turn around because he heard a thunderous roar, he calls it. And he turns and he could see a great white shark swim by, just shaking its head. He couldn't see what it was shaking. All he could see was the body of the shark and the dust. You know, it was already poor visibility. Well, he's at the bottom, this thing's shaking whatever, and it dusted up the whole water. So he took a defensive position behind that rock, probably this colorful rock. So he's behind that, hiding. And he says that shark turned around and came and swam back just past him, within 1.5 feet of him, as he's hiding behind that rock. And the shark didn't look at him at all. It just went about its way, dragging his buddy off. You know, he popped to the top of the water, screamed shark. They came over with the boat right away. They found, as they brought the boat over, they saw the dive tank floating along with some other of the dive stuff floating in the water. As far as Jonathon himself, all they were able to find was one piece of lung and a few little, you know, pieces of his dive suit. They didn't find anything else. They said most of the time when those kind of consummations happen, they only find a piece of lung because it's, you know, it's got the air pockets and it'll float up to the top. So this is our second story, where all they found was a piece of lung of the victim. Attack, consumed. That's our story of Jonathon Lee. Okay, now we'll finish off our unprovoked attacks over at the Great Barrier Reef at Lodestone Reef. The date is July 25th, 1983. Ray Boundy, 28 years old. He is the skipper, the captain of a shrimp boat, the New Venture. And he's got 2 crew members on board. One of them is Dennis Murphy. He is 24 years old. He's the decky. And the other is Linda Horton. She's 21 and she is the cook. It's Sunday night. They are in terrible weather and they are capsized by a large wave. At the time the wave hit, the decky Murphy was on the deck. He was able to jump overboard as it was hit. The other 2, Linda and Ray, they were in the wheelhouse as it spun and flipped over, so they had to swim their way down and out and back up. They all get themselves and climb up on top of the boat. Now they're on top of this overturned boat. They must have had a discussion. Somebody had to have gone down and brought up something for them to try to swim with. They brought up things to help them float. One was a surfboard. The other is life ring, and the third was pieces of styrofoam. So this was what the 3 of them had collected from inside the boat to be able to swim their way to an island or reef that they were looking to get to. Sunday night they start swimming. Everything's fine, and late Monday, tiger shark shows up. 16-foot tiger shark, a huge, ugly tiger shark shows up. It comes up, and there's a couple different, you know, there's going to be different versions of these things, some of these. So this one of the versions says that, you know, the ones that I believe, because I've seen multiple sources that I trust, say that he at first came and grabbed Ray by the leg. So Ray was bit in the knee by that shark and he beat it off. Shark let him go, and for about 10 minutes everything was cool. And suddenly the decky, Dennis Murphy, screams, "The bastard's got my leg, he's got my leg." So the tiger shark came and bit his leg off. The other 2 swim over to him, and now they're having a quick discussion where Dennis tells them, "Look, the shark's going to be coming back. You guys swim away." He talks them into swimming away. So Ray had to, you know, work with Lindsay to try to get her out of her state of shock, to get her to swim off with him. And when they were a little distance away, Ray was able to look back and see that, you know, the body of Dennis be pulled underwater. So he's got her finally in a swimming mood, and they're swimming for a couple hours, 2 to 3 hours, everything's fine, and then he says he thinks it's the very same shark shows up again. And whoever is interviewing him, he's talking to him, they must be walking, because he says it moved as fast as we're moving now. So they must have been walking when they were doing this interview. You would imagine they were walking very slow. And it reminds me of the Heather Boswell great white shark. This is a tiger, but the same type of thing, where it just slowly, methodically, just slowly comes up at them. And he says he knew it was going to take one of them. He says at the last second it swerved over and grabbed Linda underneath the arms, in between the legs. He's holding Linda's hand at the time, and it just shook. It bit down and shook. And he says he knew she was gone instantly because she let out a real faint squeal, and that was it. And then she was taken away. Now he's alone, swims his way back, gets rescued, gets his knee repaired. Terrible story. You know, one of the other versions I've heard is that, you know, he was bit on his way swimming to the reef after she was bitten. I don't think so. I don't think that shark would consume 2 people and come back and bite the third. I think just because of that reason, I think that Ray was bit first, and he had to swim his way with, you know, his leg pretty much mangled up at the knee. But, you know, I can't find anything where it says one way or another, you know, where Ray's talking. I'd like to see an interview with Ray and find out which one it was, but I always don't like, you know, I don't like seeing 2 different versions of these stories, and you got to figure them out. Some of them are easy, like the one with the, you know, the global shark attack file saying it swam directly below them and then shot up to the surface. No, it didn't do that. Not in 20 feet of water. You're not going to have that. Not with somebody just below them. So, you know, some of these things you can just figure out who's making sense and who isn't by what they're saying happened. But some of them you can't, and this one's one of them that I don't know for sure which one it is. But either way, it's a crazy attack. So we're putting this down as 3 attempted predations. Okay, and then we're going to finish off our show with, you don't hear that every day. Back in 1949, in April of 1949, I believe it was, there was a U.S. destroyer out in Tampico, Mexico, doing some demonstration for the Mexican officials of the destroyer. Depth charges in the guns. They're firing off these guns and letting off these depth charges, and they claim, witnesses claim that a shark jumped right up on Miramar Beach, jumped right out of the water onto the beach and bit a guy, being scared of all the guns going off. In response, the people on the shore, they came up and beat the shark to death with sticks and whatever they could find. So they killed the shark on the shore there. But it jumped right out of the water, they say, and ended up bit a bather, you know, on the beach. So I guess a land shark attack. Don't know what type of shark, and you know, they don't get into it much there, but I did see the newspaper article on it along with seeing the story in my David Baldrich book. So it actually did happen. One story says that it drove it into the shallows, it being afraid of the thing, but they said it was acting erratic. So jumping up and, you know, beach in itself isn't out of the realm of possibility, especially with those huge guns going off there. That's got to be kind of traumatizing for those animals in the water. So that's our show for today. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you'll be back in a couple more days when we get back over into another show of attacks. But until then, if you go into that water, you are much more afraid of those sharks than they are of you.